in general, how important is seeding? I mean, we can talk about overall, but especially for the upcoming playoffs, how important is seeding?
Honestly, like, I don't think it is this year. And
Really?
I say this because obviously, like, okay, so those teams needing to get like a good push or a good seeding are already in prime position. Like the Warriors top 16. I think they're one of those teams that, would need to get a good push. You guys, Milwaukee top 16. Like I think the teams that it would matter for are already where they need to be. So it's like, okay, first round, you guys would get the Knicks. I think that's winnable. Like, it's not a big deal. First round, Golden State would get Denver. I think that's winnable.
It will be an interesting series for sure.
It's interesting, but it's not like Denver isn't Denver of old that we've seen. We've seen some inconsistencies in Denver this
Yeah.
season. And with the addition of Jimmy Butler, I think that makes the Warriors scarier. So it's like all these teams that are in the bottom, if you will, that needs to be in prime position already are. So I'm not keeping my eyes on any. I mean, Minnesota, they're not going to do what they did last season. I hate to say, but they're not. I mean, maybe Trey Young and the Hawks, Orlando, you want to keep an eye on them. Either way, you run up on Cleveland and Boston. How important is that? Pick your poison, is what that seems like. So, I mean,
Yeah, I think that I agree that for the teams that it matters for, like the Bucks being a top six team is great, but the Bucks not having home court advantage in the playoffs and not playing the more
Fine.
favorable opponent.
Absolutely fine not having home court advantage. Our home crowd sucks. I'll say it a million times over. It sucks. It is so quiet. Like I tell you, the only chant that we had that got us that chip was Bobby. If we did not have that
mhm.
Bobby chant, we lose. I I was at the game where it all happened. If we do not have that chant, we end up losing the finals because there's no morale in that building. There's no cohesiveness, no sort of anything. I don't know. It's just missing some oomph that we missed from back in the day. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Being at home games, I'm like, they priced out all the good fans. No one really cares. But that's just me. That's just my take.
That's a real thing for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd rather play in a place where it's loud.
Mhm.
Giannis loves the Garden. Why not?
um, yeah, as far as the East, I think seeding is more impactful in the West than in the East, right? Because in the East, like you said, like Cleveland and Boston are solidified. While I don't think it happens, it will be interesting to watch and see if Cleveland continues this skid and loses the number one seed by chance. Don't see it happening. But the fact that they've been on this skid as of late, interesting to see. But no, as yeah, the East doesn't really get interesting until the second round. And even then, I think most people still look at it as it's going to be Cleveland or Boston. And the only thing that's going to keep it interesting is if Cleveland has home court advantage. So the East is the East. The West, however, now
It's gonna be great. Again,
Houston looks like they will likely lock up this second seed. And I don't think Houston is a fluke, right? Like they've been on the up and up. Ime's doing great over there. But I do think whoever they end up playing in that 2-7 matchup, whether it be Minnesota or the Clippers, it's going to be a tough series for them. I don't think home court advantage is going to matter. And I think that Houston's offense is going to be what that's going to be their Achilles heel come playoffs time. Now, can they, as far as Houston, they can't dictate who they play. But if I'm in that play in, I that 7-8 game, I want that 7 seed. I mean, obviously, like I'd rather play Houston than play OKC. So I think seeding there in the play in will matter. I think the bottom of the play-in is going to be irrelevant because it's Dallas, Sacramento, and Phoenix. And I don't even know if either of those teams are going to beat the loser of.
Lose.
Yeah, I don't think either of those teams beats the loser of Minnesota and the Clippers. And even if they did manage to win that game, they definitely ain't beating OKC in those
We see
7
another
years.
Dallas scandal trying to lose their play-in.
Right. But like you said, that 3-6 matchup will be interesting. I don't know if either team necessarily wants it first round, but I mean, because where Memphis is, I think that's where you get interesting. Like Houston and Memphis will be the easiest matchups of the first round, in my opinion. So does Memphis fall or do they stay in that 4 or 5 and the Lakers get a relatively, I mean, that's probably ideal for the Lakers to stay in the 4 or 5, get Memphis, beat them, and then have a shot at beating OKC.
Not if Memphis falls, because if
Right.
Memphis falls, then you have Golden State in the first round. And
Ah,
that's not a guarantee that you get out of the first round.
bad blood there.
So
Yeah.
they're probably hoping that Golden State either doesn't play consistently,
Yeah.
stays at 6, or that Memphis can hold strong and just get to the playoffs, not being on the skid to end the regular season. But again, because Memphis is the matchup that you would want, now where teams trying to position themselves, right? So it'll.
Yeah, you better pray to God Memphis stays at 5.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think the Lakers want to, and I mean it'll be interesting because the teams kind of match up a little bit better.
They
Because
do.
since you don't have an AD, Golden State no longer has the dilemma of not having somebody that can guard AD, right? And like they have a big man that they play with, they're more likely to play a small ball lineup the same way that the Lakers do. So it will probably be a better matchup if it came down to it. But yeah, I don't think either team would want that to be their first round matchup either. I'm pretty sure Golden State would love to avoid Denver or LA if they could.
I don't know. If I'm Golden State, I'm not scared
Of either?
of either one of them. I'm not. Luka included. I don't care if it's Luka. It could be Jokic. I don't care who they have. I'm not scared. The run that they went on, I don't think
Talk
it's.
about Warriors in 5.
But yeah, we need Shannon Sharp. He does those illiterate, whatever those are called.
Yeah. But so how far you think the Warriors going?
As far as it takes them to OKC, possibly. I think that's
You
the
don't think they got enough for OKC though?
end of the line, Mister Ink. I think that's where that train stops. I mean, but I wouldn't be surprised if they got past. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think that's where it ends. Because who do they have to guard Hardenstein? Who do they have to guard a Chet? Like,
That's it.
yeah.
I mean, you can't. I mean, maybe you can match Looney's minutes with Hardenstein, maybe, but
Guards are just too big in OKC for them, I'm pretty sure. Like
That too.
all the way across the board.
I mean, does Jimmy's role change defensively, more specifically, now being on the Warriors where you can deploy him more defensively because he doesn't have to have the offensive role that he had in Miami. And now you have more defenders at your disposal if you're Golden State.
So Steph takes Lou Dort, Jimmy takes Shea,
Yeah.
Dre takes J-Dub.
No, you got to put Dre on check. So you got to get J-Dub to who starts? Moody?
Kevon, Hardenstein.
Kaminga. I rather Kaminga on J-Dub.
I think if they were playing OKC, I think Kerr should start Kaminga for the sake of matchups.
Yeah.
For the sake of matchups.
So it's doable. It's doable.
They got the personnel to make it work if Kerr's gonna make it.
Steph.
It's just a lot of help. A lot of help defense and communication.
Yeah, I mean, but I will say the Warriors have if you're in that 2-7-3-6, you gotta that's the favorable path, right? Because if Golden State stays at 6, say they beat Denver, right? So now you're playing the winner of Houston and maybe Minnesota, or Houston and maybe the Clippers, right? Either three of those teams, you probably still feel really good about it. I feel really good about them against either of those teams, right? So you don't see OKC theoretically until the conference finals. And if you get there by that point, now you got Steph in the conference finals. You
You're
got Jimmy
rolling.
in another conference finals. And now it's like, is experience going to win again? Or is OKC ready to, take that next step? Right. So very doable. Very doable. But yes, the West is completely wide open. I truly have no idea who comes out. And it's not to say that OKC can't be the favorite. I just think that it's going to come down to whether they make the leap or not. That is their only question. Can you all make the leap and win games on the biggest stage when it matters? Because all the other teams have going for them is experience. They aren't better rosters than OKC. So it's up to them. And I honestly, I would say it's a little bit different in the East because I would say Cleveland has the same argument, but I don't want to discredit Boston as the defending champs. So it's not so much that it's just experience because I think Boston's roster is comparable to Cleveland's. So it's a little bit of a more difficult path. But I mean, I don't know. It still comes down to Cleveland proving that they're just ready for the big stage, and more specifically, their role players. We've talked about this before, but I'm pretty sure Donovan Mitchell will show up. Will Darius Garland be a great playoff performer? That will be the question. Will Evan Mobley be a great playoff performer? That will be the question. If they are, though, it's there for them to take. There for them to take. Just say it.